What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Hoops Corner. I'm your host, Peter Tran, and on the line, the Iceman making an appearance during the day. Josh Cohen, how you doing?
Feeling fantastic. It's a beautiful day outside. We got playoff basketball again tonight. It's been a lot of fun series so far in the semifinals. That's what we're calling it, right? It's round two is semifinals, right?
I think so, and then what's after semis?
Conference.
What? Isn't semis just like the thing before the finals, though?
No. The conference finals is before the finals. That I know for sure. Round two, I think, officially is called the semifinals.
Sounds a little... whatever. It's a little convoluted is all I'm saying. I call it the second round.
That works
too. I don't
too.
do all this.
Round two.
Yeah, man. Round two's been good so far. You know, you had OKC and Dallas just fighting it out. Two battles of blue teams. Lots of... a little feistiness in this series. See a lot of PJ Washington, which I was not expecting to happen, or like Derrick Jones Jr. just popping off in Game 5. A lot of Lou Dort right up Luka's ass. So, you know, that's been kind of fun, kind of fun to watch. Someone just pissing off Luka even more than the refs do. And Kyrie turning into like, I don't know. I don't want to call him like point guard Kyrie because he's a natural point guard, but just a
he's turned into Rick Brunson.
Mood. Come on, man.
He's a pass-first point guard. He just averages like 10 points and 8 assists every game.
This is a new Kyrie, man. Anyways, all that to say, this OKC and Dallas series has to be like the best one out of round two, right? Or Denver, Minnesota.
Yeah, I think maybe people consider Denver, Minnesota to be better because of the implications of it. You know, the fact that if Minnesota wins, they're beating the champs, obviously, and a lot of people consider this to be the finals, or at least, you know, the matchup that'll lead to whichever team who wins will make the finals. Ultimately, I think it will be the finals, to be honest. But in terms of the Dallas series, I think that it's been the most interesting so far from like a tactical perspective, and just seeing like the in-game adjustments. A lot of the things that OKC hasn't done so far that I think that might help them or propel them to actually, you know, win games easier. Seems like they're making things a lot harder on themselves than they need to based on not wanting to make certain individuals unhappy. And a lot of tactical things throughout the game. Yeah, I mean, like, why did they continue to start Josh Giddey after game 1 or game 2 when it was very clear what Dallas was doing? Like, there was a screenshot yesterday where Shea was in the lane, and he had literally 4 guys on him, and guess who was in the corner?
Josh Giddey, baby.
Yeah, and Daniel Gafford's, like, on SGA without a care in the world because he doesn't have to guard him. It's like, you know, if you're going to play the guy off the bench, which they finally did in this game, fine. But the other tactical thing that nobody's really talking about is a lot of the game they're putting Jalen Williams on Kyrie Irving. And I think that's really taken a toll on his energy levels. Because normally when SGA is out of the game, Jalen Williams is like the guy in the game. And I've noticed in the last couple of games, especially when he's getting the ball when SGA is out of the game, he's not really being that aggressive. He's, you know, getting the ball and he's throwing a lot of quick passes. He's not really running pick and roll a lot, and his shot totals are down. His overall aggression is down. So I think that's really taken a toll on him. And I think, you know, Cason Wallace has done like an amazing job on Kyrie. So I feel like he should be the guy that's getting a lot of minutes in this series just to, you know, ensure that Jalen Williams has some off time from Kyrie.
Yeah, Jalen Williams legit looks like a shell of himself. And I never thought I would say that for a guy who's like, what, 22, 23 years old at most? It's kind of strange, right? Like,
it's tough playing that kind of defense all game, though, right? Because the way they're playing Kyrie, it's very frantic. Where, you know, when he gets in the lane, they clearly have a rule where the closest guy will come and double team, and then Jalen Williams has to veer out and then go pick up the man in the corner. It's just a lot of running, right? Just a lot of back and forth. And just guarding Kyrie in general is a tough task with how he moves. And, you know, he's done a lot of off-the-ball work in this series, too, which takes a lot on your body, obviously, having to go through screens. So I think they have to find a way to get Jalen Williams, first of all, get him more shots, and then keep his energy levels high just by not playing on the ball all the time.
Yeah, I think when you... we didn't actually talk about this, but I'm going to make an assumption that when you heard about Josh Giddey going to the bench yesterday in Game 5, the assumption was that Cason Wallace would be starting, right? Because, as you said, I don't want to say he's locked down Kyrie, but he's done a very good job of staying in front of him, moving his feet really well. He's long as hell, and, like, he's one of those older rookies that looks like they're ready for the moment. He did not shoot the ball very well in Game 5, let me preface with that. So, like, who knows if he was actually ready for the moment. He looked kind of shook after, like, two or three shots didn't drop. He drove into the lane, had an open lane to shoot, like, a little floater, and sort of just, like, pulled out because he didn't really know what to do. But that's on the offensive end, right? On the defensive end, he was still locked in on Kyrie as always, and they closed the game with him. Well, down like the most important parts of the game, at least. They didn't literally close the game because, it was over. But, it sort of looked like that was a move, and yet we saw Daigneault go to Isaiah Joe instead to start. I'm assuming just to spread the floor a bit more, right? Because as you said, with Jalen Williams sort of just not contributing as much on offense, it's basically just Shea on his own out there. Not going to rely on Chet to create any offense. Lou Dort seems to think he can shoot threes. Some days he can really knock the ball down, but yesterday just wasn't one of those days. And so, you're just looking for any kind of spacing you can.
Yeah, I think the negative side of thing with Dort is he's driving too much. He's trying to do too much off the dribble. Like if he's a guy who just catches and goes and makes the next pass, that's totally fine. But there's been a lot of like forays to the rim, and he's just not that good at that. And Dallas is often playing him for the pass. They're playing pretty much everyone for the pass when they get in the lane because they know that they can't get all the way to the rim because there's always one of the Dallas centers just standing there. So they have to figure out that part of things and like getting into their actions quicker, getting Chet up on the ball too, like getting him screening more often just to get their center away from the basket, which again involves Giddey being off the floor because if you have Giddey on the floor, then your center can just, stay in the lane. So he's been pretty much unplayable. I think he pretty much is unplayable with, OKC's big three, just based on how Dallas plays defense. Because again, if he's in the game, the center's right in the middle every time, right? Blocking the basket. That's why SG has to take all of his shots from 5 to 15 feet, which are great shots for him, but it's tough to win a game, with a guy making 10 mid-range shots. It's only been done like once in the last 20 years. I think Chris Paul is the only other guy to do that. And SGA went 10 for 14 in game 4 in order to win that game, with nobody else really doing anything. So I understand why they started Joe because they want to get more shooting out there, and the way Dallas is playing defense, they're allowing a lot of open threes. So the strategy made sense. It just, I think Kayson Wallace should have played more because he's a plus, 40% three-point shooter in the regular season, even though, like you mentioned, with other guys on the OKC team, he has looked a bit shook in the last couple of games as well. But at the same time, as of before yesterday's game, opponents were shooting 14 out of 54, which is 26%, when he was a primary defender in the playoffs. And that's the best out of anybody so far in the playoffs. So
pretty good.
Pretty good. If you can, withstand both having him and Dort on the floor, if they're both not making shots, then yeah, you probably have to bring in Joe at some point, obviously. Have him play more minutes, but you just can't play Giddey anymore, I don't think.
Giddey barely played in Game 5.
It's just what's the point of playing him at all at this point? You have Jalen Williams out there with the second unit, make him the primary guy like you always do. I understand wanting more ball handlers out there at a certain point, but you already have two main guys, and Chet's been pretty good when he has drove to the basket this series, when he has been aggressive, which hasn't been that often, but he has looked okay. So I think you can get enough as long as Jalen Williams, you need to get Jalen Williams at 20 points per game. That's what they need. So
yeah, that has barely happened in the playoffs, let alone during the regular season. He hasn't. During the regular season, he wasn't hitting 20 points, was he?
He was averaging 19 and a half, and it was really efficient, right? But in the playoffs, it's different, right? You need to up your volume, even if it lowers your efficiency, and I don't think he's adjusted to that quite yet, to where, if he's cut off in a certain move, he's not trying to run and get it back and make a quick move later in the clock. He's just sort of passing it off, and then you see guys like Lou Dort trying to do things that are outside of his capabilities, so you need guys like SGA gets it. Like when he gets the ball, he's looking to score every time, whereas Jalen Williams hasn't really, been able to, I guess, adhere to that type of mentality. Like you just need that type of mentality to take 20 shots in the game. Like even if you're 1 for 8 in the game, you need to get up to 20 no matter what.
Yeah, that's true. If you look at this OKC roster, it's basically just Shea, who has real playoff experience, right? You could consider Dort with that one series against Houston when he really knocked James Harden around. Yeah, that was his rookie year, though.
Incredible too.
How long ago was that? 3 or 4 years ago?
I think it was like 5 years ago. It makes us feel old.
Yeah. No, it would have been the season that they had Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder with Shea, right?
Yep, I think that was 2019.
2020. I think that was bubble.
Yeah, I don't even remember, man. Time is
Whatever.
flying.
Whatever. My whole point is you basically have two guys with real playoff experience on this team, right? The rest of them are first, second, third year players at most. And, we've seen OKC over the past few years. They just didn't do anything to even try to make the playoffs. Whereas with this Dallas team, you have Luka Doncic, who, we all know his playoff resume. You have Kyrie Irving, we already know his playoff resume. And you have veterans. Like Gafford and PJ Washington have been in the league for a while now. Tim Hardaway Jr. been in the league for a while and knows his role. Derek Lively playing surprisingly well for a rookie, but it's kind of easy when you have like two of the best passers in the league, right? Just giving literally just handing you the ball at the net. So I don't know. It's gonna be tough for OKC to get past any of this vast experience, really.
And even if they lose in Game 6, this season will be a massive success, being the number one seed in one of the most competitive conferences ever. They're a super young team, obviously. Every single one of their rotation players pretty much is under 25. And yeah, I mean, they have a lot of different paths they can go forward with. I think they're, as a lot of people mentioned before the playoffs started, they're going to use this as a litmus test to see what they need come playoff time. And I think it's pretty clear that they just need one more starter that can, shoot the ball, obviously, provide spacing, defend a little bit, and rebound. So if they can find that guy and maybe like another couple veterans off the bench, you're rolling at that point. You still have 1,000 picks to get better, too. I think they have 2 picks within the first, I think they have 2 picks in the lottery, if I was taken this year. At least one.
Oh, I'm not sure, but
yeah, I mean, they have a lot of cap space available as well, depending on what they do with the extensions. They can get creative with that as well. So they have a lot of options. But yeah, I mean, in terms of Dallas, I haven't really talked about that too much. But, like you mentioned, PJ Washington has been incredible shooting the ball. The one big change that he's made this series is he's actually shooting it off the catch without hesitation every single time, which is something that, again, like the OKC guys are not doing. Well, they're just passing up shots and, dribbling into traffic, passing it back out, and just rinse repeat until you get later in the clock, and then you just get a low percentage shot. Whereas guys like Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington were clearly told, like, you need to take these shots or else we're taking you out. And then, Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to come in the game, and he's for sure going to get those shots up.
Definitely getting his shots up. No question.
Yeah, absolutely. But, Derek Lively, not just offensively, but defensively, he's been a massive contributor. And the fact that he's closing games over Gafford just shows how great he's been, because Gafford's been really good in this series. But Lively's activity, especially on the boards, like he had a couple offensive rebounds last game that really pushed the lead out and getting Dallas second chance points. And he was really good on Chet as well. So he's had a big impact, and he's looking like a future, I wouldn't say potential defensive player of the year, because obviously we got the guy in San Antonio, but I would say he's going to be a potential all defensive team type of player for sure.
Yeah. And, at the center of all, it's Luka Doncic. Maybe a little bit hobbled. Maybe has a knee injury from last series that, to be realistic, games 1 through 4, he looked a little bit slow, looked a little bit sloppy, was complaining to the refs a lot more. And then something happened in Game 5 where he just sort of looked like he had bounce again. I'm not really sure. Maybe they just injected him with something. Maybe he went to Germany for a day. Who knows?
What's the biggest thing you noticed with his game yesterday? Just with him on the court in general.
What do you mean? He was actually shooting the ball. He had lift.
He did not complain. That was shocking. He got hit a couple times by Dort in the first quarter, and then he just walked away, and I was like, did I see that right? I had to rewind it. I was like, what is going on here? I was confused. He complained like twice the entire game. I've never seen that before. Like, I've never seen it. I've watched a lot of Luka games. He's never done that before.
Well, you heard him in the presser, man. You just had to focus in on basketball.
He should do that more often so he's not as annoying to watch. Because, when he doesn't complain, his game in general, he's one of the most aesthetically pleasing players to watch in the NBA because he can literally do everything out there.
I don't know, man. This series has been, this playoff run has been a little bit different because Kyrie's become much more of a factor than he was before. But if heliocentric Luka continues, I'm out. I
I
can't
mean, they've
stand
been
watching
better
it.
this series though because they've sort of had to. Like OKC's strategy is actually really good if you look at it from a broader spectrum. The fact that they're trying to take the ball away from Kyrie and Luka and trying to make guys like Derek Jones Jr. beat them,
Hmm.
that's the right strategy. But unfortunately for them in Game 5, it happened. Derek Jones Jr. beat them.
Yep. And games 3 and 4, PJ Washington beat them. It's
Indeed.
unfortunate, but it's a good strategy. I mean, it is what it is. You try to. It's kind of like what Minnesota did to Denver in the first 2 games, right? You get the ball out of your best two players' hands and then hope that everyone else can beat you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, and teams adjust obviously, so you gotta try to make adjustments before those adjustments. But sometimes you gotta adjust in game, and it just doesn't happen because game flow is game flow. So
Jason Kidd, what a coach, man. What a coach.
yeah, it got extended too, surprisingly. Sure,
Good for
Dallas
him,
fans are
man.
not happy about that, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right, let's move east. I don't really want to talk about this like Celtics series because like it's the Celtics. They dominated the league the whole year. Kind of expected that they would beat the Cavs, especially when it wasn't Orlando that got to the second round. Yeah,
They have to
Donovan
have the
Mitchell
easiest
injury.
road to the finals in the last 25 years, right?
I don't know, man. If this New York hype train continues on, who knows? You're gonna hear a lot of "fuck Jason Tatum's" chants in this
No, but
in
they don't
MSG.
have OG, right? Unless OG comes back, then you might have a series there, but otherwise, like you look at it, Embiid injured, Giannis injured, OG injured, Randall, all the guys from New York, obviously, assuming that they make it. Um, and just their opponents so far, like obviously Cleveland, the last couple of games, all their players missing. Boston has like by far the easiest road to the finals that I can think of in the last long while, honestly.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Cleveland yesterday, no Mitchell, no Jared Allen, and to top it off, no Karis LeVert, who was their secondary, tertiary ball handler, whatever you want to call him. But oh, forget the Celtics series. Let's go to the Knicks instead, because this hype train is just flowing on, man. Games 3 and 4 go to Indy. Indy just takes care of business. They wax them off their own floor. And it might have been a blessing in disguise for New York, right? New York gets pummeled in game 4, but they kind of get like a little bit more rest for their guys. You saw Josh Hart for once had less than like 5 or 6 rebounds in a game in game 4. I don't think that's happened in months. So, the assumption going back to New York, going back to MSG, is that the Knicks would have a little bit more energy, a little bit more hype, and they ran that floor, man. They took care of business. Even though Dante DiVincenzo could barely hit anything. You had Jalen Brunson coming back to normal. You had Josh Hart grabbing everything he saw. Miles McBride was like a flamethrower out there. It was just like classic Knicks playoff run. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. This is like reminiscent of Knicks from like the first series all over again, but without OG.
Yeah, they just out toughed Indiana in that game, honestly. They got some good offense later in the game, but that's mostly because Indiana's defense was just that abhorrent. It was just awful. Like their double teams were so soft, and the way they doubled just allowed New York to play the 4-on-3 game, sort of like Golden State did with Draymond. But they can't make the same type of rotations behind the double team. They really have no idea what they're doing. So there's a lot of missed rotations, a lot of open threes, and when those threes didn't go in, Isaiah Hartenstein had 12 offensive rebounds. So they were getting killed
Crazy.
on everything. And, I heard like Miles Turner after the game saying they got out toughed. It's like, no, you got out toughed. Box somebody out. Get a rebound. He had like 3 rebounds that game. And he's consistently getting beat just because he wouldn't put a body on somebody. He's so soft on defense now. Like Miles Turner he's by far better on offense now than he does on defense. And New York goes at him too, right? They go straight to the basket, and he's not even trying to block shots anymore. It's sort of weird. It's sort of like he's lost some athleticism, where he just doesn't, or he's saving his energy for offense. Maybe I don't know.
Which would be wild. Like that's just a weird thing to do when you have, Tyrese Halliburton seemingly like setting up the floor for you guys. But if I don't know if you feel the same way, but Tyrese Halliburton's sort of disappearing act in this series has not gone unnoticed. You know what I mean? I think all eyes were on him to take that next leap. It's his first playoff run. Dude's really young, so I don't think the expectation should have been there for him to be, to be that superstar in this series. But all eyes are on him. Olympic team member, blah blah blah, and time again, I don't know. I don't know if they want to blame that hamstring injury that he had earlier in the year. I don't know if you just want to blame inexperience, general fatigue. But Tyrese Halliburton has sort of just kind of just like disappeared in this series. Like he's not as aggressive. He doesn't really know what he's doing out there. Like if he's not holding the ball, he sort of just chills. Kind of like John Wall back in the day, you know? Just a ball dominant point guard that if he doesn't have the ball, he doesn't know what to do. And even when he has the ball, he's not setting guys up like he used to.
Yeah, the thing is, you can't say that, the hamstring injury is bothering him now when in game 2 and 3 or whenever it was, he had like 30 plus points and he looked fine, right? I think it's more so just a mentality thing and being able to adjust with, physical defense with the way that they're playing him. And a lot of times, like you said, like he'll bring the ball up, set up a play, and then he just won't get the ball back. He'll just stand out, sort of like what Harden used to do. He stands out at 35 feet and just hangs out there. It's like he's been a better off-ball player this year. Like he's actually been pretty decent, but especially in the last game, he just didn't move. It was odd to watch. But when he does get the ball, he plays with it too much in the half court. He just not like Jalen Brunson where he just like quick movements, get the ball off the catch, go around a DHO. He dribbles too much. I think that's something he's gonna have to figure out going forward.
He's trying to be cute. Way too cute out there. And
Yeah.
I sort of have to do this, but to fill in for Raj, who's not here today, Pascal Siakam cannot be your number one option if you want to win. I hate to say it. I love Pascal. I love his game. He seems like one of the nicest guys in the league. But if you want to have any real shot at winning a playoff series, Pascal shouldn't be your number one guy on offense. That's a recipe for disaster. He's just
No,
not
for
it.
sure. I mean, two things have to happen. Halliburton has to be more aggressive, obviously. He has to, be the guy out there, obviously, which means that they need to play faster. But that leads to the main point, which is they have to rebound the ball. Like New York misses a lot of shots because they only have, what, 5 guys right now, and they're playing 7, which Thibodeau doesn't want to do, but he has to. Otherwise, these guys are going to die on the court. So when these guys are out there, like Precious Achiuwa, Alec Burks, etc., guys that he doesn't want to play, like Indiana needs to speed the game up, but in order to do that, you need the ball first. And they just were not tough enough on the ball. Like in the games in Indiana, they were actually rebounding the ball pretty well. And I understand why they don't want Neesmith on Brunson, because he's a guy that can actually get out there and rebound the ball. And if he's on Brunson, he's away from the bucket, which means that, what's his name?
Nemhard's going to have to rebound?
Nemhard's going to have to rebound, yeah. And New York was really smart last game. Like they brought Nemhard into every single action. They were sort of doing what OKC does in the guard-to-guard actions, and that they were bringing Nemhard's guy up so he'd be on the ball, and then Brunson would just ISO him instead of getting into another pick and roll because he's just abused him the entire series because Nemhard's not big enough to guard him. So Indiana's going to have to find a way to adjust to that. And then, again, just get a rebound. Pascal and Turner need to rebound better in order for them to have a chance. I think ultimately they're going to win Game 6. I don't think New York's going to win Game 6. I think it's going to go to 7. And then at that point, I think you have to choose a tougher team. So I think ultimately New York's going to come out of the series, but when they get into Boston and if OG's out, then good luck.
Man, let's hope that New York closes it in 6. So you mentioned 2 guys that came off of New York's bench. Precious Achiuwa and Alec Burks. Alec Burks not exactly a big guy, right? He's like 6'3", known as like a gunner off the bench. 5 rebounds.
Yeah, and I think Precious had like
also 5. He had 5.
Yeah, I think Precious had like 5 stocks as well. So
4.
Precious
4
has been
stocks.
good. No,
4
there you
stocks.
go. I mean,
impressive, man.
He's been good when he comes in. He's like the perfect third center, honestly. Like he comes in, brings a lot of energy, and he's actually finishing around the rim. And he's not taking the stupid shots he did with Toronto either, and not playing around with the ball. So clearly Thibodeau got to him. So good for him.
Oh yeah, Toronto Precious was. I love Toronto Precious, man. That was a fun time. It always kept you on your toes,
No, in the first couple of games they played with Toronto, he looked like KD in some of the actions, honestly.
He
He'd bring the ball up the floor and hit like pull-up threes, and I'm like, whoa!
Yeah.
This guy's got something.
He did that in New York, too. He did that in New York when they traded for him in December or January. Yeah, he was on fire. Oh my goodness. He grabbed every rebound that was even close to him, even though Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein were on the team. He's like, nah, give me that shit. And now he's relegated back to his bench role where he should be.
No, but he's doing. I'm glad to see him doing well. I'm glad to see all the Toronto guys are doing well. Sad to see OG go down because I was really hoping he'd be able to play against Boston and make that a competitive series. But
Hmm.
I think they're hiding the true nature of that injury.
Yeah.
I don't think he's coming back. So
No, no, I think he's done. But yes, also good for the Toronto guys. I like seeing Pascal Siakam in the playoffs again. Even
for
though,
sure,
I just shat on him a bit. I love Pascal, man. He's a perfect like number 2 or 3 option on a team. There shouldn't be number one.
definitely not.
All right, let's. I mean, we're recording on Thursday afternoon, so I don't know if I'll get this up by the time the Denver game starts tonight. Highly unlikely, but whatever. Let's just get into it real quick, man. Denver, Jokic is a false MVP. What can I say? Who knew? Rudy Gobert also a false defensive player of the year. The internet's never happy. Surprise, surprise.
Clearly,
But realistically, okay, I want to ask you. I think we've like barely talked about this. Should Jamal Murray have been suspended for throwing that heat pack on the floor?
I mean, you're setting a precedent, right? If the guys for Phoenix back in the day that came off the bench when Robert Ory hip checked Steve Nash got suspended because of that stupid rule, it seems like they'd have something in place for something like this already. But based on the referee's response in the pool report after the game, where he said that if he saw that it was Jamal Murray that threw the what did he throw again? A heat pack and something else?
A towel first that didn't hit the floor, and then a heat pack that hit
Yeah.
the
So
court.
if he knew that he was being thrown at, as in the referee was being thrown at, he would have given Jamal Murray a technical. So I think based on him saying that, they can't really go against what the referee says after the fact. So you think like after the game, the NBA would call the referee, I think it was Mark Davis, and be like, "This is how this should have happened. So when you describe it to the pool reporters, make sure to say it this way so we can use this in the future to make us not
Hmm.
look bad." But they didn't go that route. So I think now this is the precedent. If it was up to me, yes, you get suspended because there could have been so many different things that could have happened there. Like somebody could have
Hmm.
slipped on it, could have hit somebody in the head, could have affected play, which luckily it didn't. But the fact that he did that, you would think that that would result in suspension if some of these rules that are in place now, where guys come off the bench and take 1 foot off the bench onto the floor and they get suspended for a huge marquee
No,
game, no
those
matter
days are
what.
over. Those days are over, man. With Adam Silver being at the leader of all this, it's a players' league. Players can do whatever they want these days. You like legitimately, these scuffles. You see like coaches always like doing that thing where they're like holding back the players on the benches and stuff. Guys are stepping on the floor. Coaches are literally on the floor mid game, and just refs are like whatever about it. It's not like what it used to be with David Stern anymore. You know what I mean? And like
I mean, it
I
hasn't happened in
agree.
the playoffs, though, right? So I think if it does happen in the playoffs, I think they have to use the previous rule that was in place, right?
I don't know, man. Yes, the in Game 5, Michael Malone, was legitimately on the floor after Minnesota had scored on Denver. So like Denver's inbounding the ball. He's literally on the floor yelling at a ref, and then just like play continues on. It's like dude's like 3 or 4 feet onto the court. He's not just like a little bit off, but dude's like legitimately on the floor. I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
man, like this would never fly under David Stern,
I
and I
think
don't think
Monty
it should fly.
Williams. Yeah, I think Monty Williams got a technical foul in like a key point of a game like 2 years ago in the playoffs because he was outside of his coach's box and he went onto the floor with like 20 seconds left in the game one time and he got a technical for that. So yeah, they have been more lax with that for sure. I just go back and think about like what could have been. Like if they never suspended those Phoenix guys. But to stay on topic here in terms of like
you're
Denver.
you're living like 17 years ago. Yeah.
I mean, imagine what the NBA could be if Phoenix actually won the championship instead of San Antonio, right? So,
Yeah, Kawhi would have never landed in San Antonio. No dynasty.
and the
Wow.
game would be a lot. I mean, maybe the game changes a lot quicker too, right? So,
Shaq wouldn't be angry about losing his MVPs to Steve Nash.
well, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
That would still happen.
it's
That
true.
whole Jokic Shaq thing was just a joke too.
I
You
mean,
know what
I
that is,
understand.
right?
What? Tell
It's
me.
jealousy. He's jealous that Jokic is about to, if not already, has already passed him in like the all-time great list. He's
I don't
worried
know
that
if
if
he's
Jokic
past him
wins
yet.
another one, I mean, it's
He's gotta
close.
he's gotta win at least one more. But that whatever. whatever. That's besides the point. I kind of like it because it's weird that Shaq is just doing all this weird shit, like starting beefs with like other media members and stuff when TNT is about to like lose their NBA rights.
And you could see Ernie was so uncomfortable with the whole thing too. He's
Oh my
even like when they brought
goodness.
Jokic on and Shaq brought it up, Ernie's like, "Ugh, why would you bring this up now? You've already done like 15 minutes on this before the previous day, basically crapping on Jokic when they announced that he won the MVP, saying that SGA is a stat stuffer, and then Ernie's like, stat stuffer? Have you seen what Jokic does every game? What are you talking about? It's very clear Shaq feels threatened.
Okay, it is what it is, man. But anyways, back to the series. So games 1 and 2, you saw Minnesota basically coming out and doing whatever they wanted on defense, right? You had Jalen McDaniels just hounding the hell out of Jamal Murray. And then after that, if it wasn't Jalen McDaniels, it was Nikhil Alexander Walker, our proud Canadian here. Uh, Aside from that, you saw Naz Reid literally hitting every shot that he took in Denver. Rudy Gobert missed game 2 for the birth of his son. Congratulations. Basically, Minnesota just walked all over Denver in those first 2 games. And then game 3, Denver comes out, pulls the whole like heart of a champion thing, and they had a pretty good game. They basically said we're not going down like bitches. We're gonna come out and fight, and they fought. Got the ball out of Jamal Murray's hands a little bit faster. Jamal Murray looked like he had more pep in his step. Maybe he went to Germany during those 3 days off. Who knows? Uh, but Denver just looked like, like they were hungry again. That might have been that whole underdog theory that a lot of these teams need, right? Game 4, Game 5, you sort of had a lot of the same stuff, right? Well, similar stuff. Game 4, it was a complete let's just like stop everyone except for Anthony Edwards. No one else showed up. Literally, Anthony Edwards, the only guy on his team, and then still said, "Oh man, like I should have played better. I could have done more for our team." Cool leadership shit. I like that. But then Game 5 comes around, and maybe like an hour before the game, we find out that Mike Conley's not going to play, which means that Denver can hound the hell out of Anthony Edwards and not have any repercussions, because who on that team is going to beat them now? Are we expecting Cat to just turn into games 1 and 2 Cat all over again? Is Naz Reid going to start hitting like crazy shots again? No, sir. And then on top of that, what everyone has deemed like a masterclass from Jokic just comes out in game 5 and just dominates Minnesota basically all game, but particularly in that third quarter, just literally did everything he wanted. He was rebounding the ball whenever he wanted. He was getting assisted. Literally everyone on the team scored at ease over Cat, over Gobert, over Reed. Just took him to town.
As the guys on TNT eloquently put it yesterday, you're not supposed to be able to score 40 points and still make your teammates better. It should be one or the other in your game planning. But Jokic is a whole different animal. And, he's having a historic run again. People wrote the Denver Nuggets off after 2 games. And, Jokic has come back with a vengeance. And some of the things that they're doing have been really smart as well, like not having Murray bring up the ball as much, I think has been, very key in keeping him fresh and, him being able to take over at certain points in the game, especially when Jokic is out. But Gordon's been the guy a lot of the time, which you don't really see too often when Jokic is out of the game. Usually it's Jamal Murray running a lot of pick and roll, sort of like the same thing with OKC when SGA is out of the game where Jalen Williams takes over. But Aaron Gordon's been a guy who's been, thrust into a lot of ball handling duties. And he's made a lot of plays, and he's not doing the usual stuff that he does where he just backs down smaller defenders. Like he's having to do stuff on the perimeter, going back to his Orlando days. But back in those Orlando days, he wasn't very efficient. But now he's showing that he can be making these crazy turnaround shots and making great passes around the basket as well. Christian Brown has been massive the last 2 games as well. Like his defense on Ant has been really good. And then just overall, like actually taking shots and, kicking the ball out, making quick decisions. They haven't really played Peyton Watson that much this series because they can't have 2 non-shooters on the floor with the bench units with Gordon and him. So that's a very smart adjustment that Denver made as well. And it's actually worked out for them, only playing, really 7 guys with Reggie Jackson not playing much. Holiday's been really good this series, obviously. But, the biggest thing is like Denver's making quicker actions. They're making quicker decisions. They're getting the ball quicker with guys who are not going to be pressured as much. With Rudy Gobert's on Aaron Gordon, and Aaron Gordon brings the ball up the floor. You're not going to expect Rudy Gobert to come up and try to pressure him, which was Minnesota's entire game plan in game 1 and 2. Just keep pressuring Murray, making sure he's uncomfortable, tire him out so he's not, fourth quarter Murray at the end of the game. So Denver's adjusted to that, and Minnesota hasn't really had a counter since then. And obviously Jokic has decided to be a low post monster in the last couple of games. And whenever he gets Gobert on him, he just goes to town. Like, I thought Towns has actually done a pretty good job on him. Like, he's made him take turnaround jumpers, making him miss a few shots. But when he gets Gobert on him, it's like a whole nother story. Like, Jokic just goes into like his bag. Like, he becomes like Hakeem Olajuwon out there. It's pretty impressive.
Love seeing Rudy out there. I don't understand what it is. I don't know what's going on there, but love seeing Rudy out there. That's all I can say. That's probably why they lost game 2. He was expecting Rudy and got Naz Reid instead. Didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that they haven't really got Michael Porter Jr. going at all either. And Jamal Murray's had 1.5 good games so far, I would say. Maybe 2. Last game he was like, okay.
2 cumulatively between 4 and 5, right? Game 3 he was very good. That was like a good Jamal Murray game, but 3 and 4 or a 4 and 5 was like But together they equal one good game, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like Cat was really good in the first half last game, but sort of tailed off in the second half. But the biggest thing is, like, if you don't have Conley, you're probably going to lose this series, right? And the fact that they came out with the injury report yesterday saying it's not the Achilles, it's the soleus, which is like the calf area, same type of injury as Giannis and Porzingis, and Conley's a 36-year-old guy, right? So you would think if it's some sort of strain, he's probably going to sit out tonight. Though there has been an update recently that he was at shoot around. So
who knows?
That's a good sign.
He's gonna play.
So hopefully he does play tonight, because I want to see both teams at full strength, obviously.
Or as close to full strength as possible. He's going to play. Mike's not going to sit out. So what do you think tonight? Going 7?
I really wanted to, but it seems like Denver's figured this out. So I think Denver's figured out Minnesota. I think they're going to end in 6.
Oh, I think it's going back to Denver.
I hope so. I want to see a game 7. I want to see all the pressure on.
I don't. I hope it ends. I've had enough of Minnesota, man. This team is scary. Also, Edwards is a bad MF, man. I like his approach to everything. Doesn't really sugarcoat anything that he says. Takes accountability whenever like the team doesn't do as well. Even though he has like a really good game, he's like, man, I just gotta do better. I gotta get my guys better. I like it. It's good leadership qualities.
No, for sure. I think they have to sort of, do with him as they did, other teams have done with like Brunson and sometimes SGA as well. Like, they need to get him off the ball a little bit and get him into actions quicker to where they can't load up on him. Because every single time he runs a pick and roll, whoever's guarding, usually Jokic, comes out and tries to trap him, push him away from the basket. And then if they get the ball back to him, he has like 5 on the clock, right? So they need to find a different way of getting him into actions quicker, which again involves a point guard, right? Like, you need a guy setting him up so he doesn't have the ball as much and doesn't have as much time to get into the action, right? Just get the ball, go. That should be his action. But, it's tough for him when he's being double teamed all the time. And then he has to go isolation, they get him late in the clock, and yeah, like, they need to figure that out.
It's crazy. You don't think about it that much on like a day-to-day basis, right? How important it is to have just another guy who can handle the ball, right? Just someone to bring the ball up the floor. Even that, like, running up half court, if there's like medium amounts of pressure, not even a lot of pressure, but just like someone in your face, it adds up over half a game to a full game, right? Like Murray in the first like couple of games. So, yeah, I mean, anything. If you had to give Nickeil Alexander-Walker the ball more, if you had to play Monte Morris a bit more, if Mike Conley's not available, you sort of have to do anything you can just to give him some release. Just a little bit of help.
And Naz Reid has to be better, too. The last few games, he was really bad, obviously. Game 2, he was incredible. But he needs to be a lot better in order for Minnesota to win. They just need more points, right? So anywhere they can find it, especially if Conley's out, like both Cat and Naz Reid have to probably together average at least 40, you would think.
Yep. 20 each, give or take.
At least, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think it's coming back to Denver, unfortunately. But what do we know,
Do you think
man?
it's going to be a rock fight tonight?
Yeah, yeah. But if it's a rock fight, you generally would think that Jokic pulls it off because he's really good in the clutch. So who knows? I don't know. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
sit
no.
back and hope to enjoy.
Yeah, I think Minnesota has to, create that kind of environment, though. They have to really slow the game down and, hope Denver can't get into those quick actions because if they do, I think the same thing's going to happen. I just hope we get a close game because most of the games that we've seen so far, they've been like between 7 and 10 points pretty much the entire game. If they are close-ish games, and there's been a couple blowouts in there, so we haven't really gotten any crunch time yet, really, truly.
Yeah, very true. All right, you got any stats corner for me?
Yeah, I got a few things today. So, Jalen Brunson has more 20-point playoff halves this year, 7, than Melo ever had in the playoffs as a Knick, which was 6. That's pretty crazy in 1 year.
Yeah.
I mean, Carmelo had a pretty good, tenure with the New York Knicks, and the fact that Brunson's already beat him in, one playoff run in terms of 20-point halves is pretty incredible.
Hey, if he had Tom Thibodeau coaching at Melo, would be different.
Maybe, maybe. I mean, you play him 48 minutes a game, so yeah, I guess you're
Exactly.
probably right about that.
And like he gets all the shots. It's kind of what Tibbs does with point guards.
For sure. And then I will test you on the most pull-up jumpers in the playoffs by players. So, do you want to go by the amount, the total amount of pull-up jumpers, or do you want to go by who is the best percentage shooter out of these 10 guys?
Let's go amount.
Okay, so can you name the top 5 in terms of overall volume of pull-up jumpers? That can be 2-pointers or 3-pointers.
I'm gonna assume Shea.
Yes, SGA is number 3 at 111 as of 2 days ago.
Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan Mitchell is surprisingly not on here.
Tatum.
Actually, no, he is on here. Sorry, number 4.
No.
104. My bad.
There you go. Tatum.
Tatum is number 9, 81.
Edwards.
So you said Edwards?
Yeah.
No, he is not on the list.
Interesting. Luka. What am I doing?
Number 2, 147 pull-up jumpers so far this playoffs.
Someone's taking more pull-up jumpers than Luka?
This one should be obvious.
Wait, did I say Brunson? Does he
No,
count?
Brunson is number 1. 158 pull-up jumpers. And then you have one more individual who's still in the playoffs right now.
Oh.
He's a guard.
Can't be Garland. Jalen Brown?
Nope.
Murray?
Nope. He played in the game yesterday.
Kyrie?
There you go. Kyrie
Oh.
has 90 pull-up attempts so far. In terms of percentage, Ant is actually number 6. He is at 86, and he's at 59% from the field in
Jesus.
terms of effective field goal percentage, anyway. Kyrie is at 54%. Spida, which is Mitchell, is at 54. SGA is at 57%. Brunson's at 44% in terms of effective field goal percentage. He's taking a lot, and he's taking them against tough defenders, obviously, in isolation situations. And then Luka's
Yeah.
at 41%, which goes to show he's pretty injured right now. So
Yeah, the Luka knee thing might be pretty serious.
he looked fine yesterday, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe
He
if
played pretty much a perfect
suspension.
game yesterday, right? He had like 30, 10, and 10 with 1 turnover. Can't go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't, parts of the game he looked like Luka, and then parts of the game he didn't, so it was a little, I don't know, I was confused by it. He took a lot of threes, though. He was not driving as nearly as much yesterday as he did, as you would expect Luka to.
No, for sure. He didn't look quite the same, but he put up the same stats as usual, and they got a W, so
That's all that
I
matters.
wouldn't say it's like a Jokic level performance, just in terms of impact, but he was pretty great yesterday regardless.
Not many things are Jokic level performances. Only Shea, according to Shaq.
Yes, indeed.
And, everybody else according to the internet.
Yes. Everyone hates Jokic, except for us.
Yeah, we love Jokic around here, man. And
sure.
on that note, I want to thank everyone for listening. Please remember to rate and subscribe. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. I'm talking Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on all the socials, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, X. And until next time, peace.